Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica here with
Summer Huntington
of the
FlowShala.
And today we are going to talk about a mace movement, which is an overhead press from open hip.
Open hip, yeah.
Warrior 2. Warrior 2 is a position which is an open hip version of Warrior 1. When we think about developing programming for athletics, we always think about teaching people to stand all the way up. First, standing all the way up is a skill that has degenerated a lot in the modern world because we sit down all the time. So when we lift weights, whether it be Olympic lifting, kettlebell lifting, club swinging, or mace swinging, the first thing that we work on is standing all the way up. Then we work on stepping patterns, moving forward or back. And our first version of that is Warrior 1. And then when we start to transition Warrior 1 into a direction turn, we go through an open hip movement called Warrior 2. Summer is an expert at coaching warrior positions from yoga. So she is going to walk us through all the key coaching cues, and then we will talk about how to integrate this into greater athletic ideas later on.
First, let's find the setup for Warrior 2 position. Start by opening into a straddle stance. Point your hands down. This determines the distance between the feet. Your fingers basically are pointing straight down at your ankles. From here, externally rotate your front leg. The back foot is turned in just slightly to allow the angle to not be too much wear and tear on the inner hip socket here. Once you establish your stance, find full external rotation, the deepest angle that you can get here, keeping the knee stacked over the ankle. Fire the back glute and then stretch the arms out. See that the hands are at the same height as the shoulders and the shoulders are drawing downward. Imagine holding two clubs here and create maximum time under tension in the pose. Continue to breathe. Oftentimes in yoga, you're breathing in and out through the nose, but if you're accustomed to breathing out of the mouth, that's totally fine as well. Switch sides, pivot the back toes in, and pivot your other foot outward. Again, a slight bit of internal rotation, because if I have too big of an angle here, my foot is here and I drop into a deep Warrior 2, there is an end point to how far my hip bone can actually fit in the socket. So that small bit of internal rotation is going to protect your hips and keep you safe. Once you're here, extend the arms. See that the wrists are the same height as the shoulders. Imagine holding your clubs. Breathe. I recommend about 5 breaths in the asana, generating force in all directions. Notice the difference between a passive yoga pose, where I'm just kind of floating my arms up and a slight bend in the knee, versus really anchoring down and performing external rotation in this front leg, really drilling down into the floor and imagining holding my 2 clubs. My trifecta of lats, deep inner core, and glutes are all firing and maximizing time under tension. Start with your mace in order position, or in steel mace vinyasa, we call it prayer. So you've got your order, which you're accustomed to if you've been working with Mark. You're holding heavy clubs. When you're holding a lighter mace, you can come to a prayer position, which just allows the shoulders to get back a bit more. It's specific for just opening the shoulders and creating more broadness across the collarbones. Then find your wide straddle stance, externally rotate the front leg, and come into the leg stance first with your mace in the middle position. Well, we want it close to the center line. Then find reverse guard, elbow married to the rib, top hand faces out. Press the mace up and overhead, return back to the starting position. You can perform your reps just keeping the lower body isolated in a Warrior 2 position as one variation. If you'd like to progress it, eventually you can bend the front knee, landing in Warrior 2, finding shoulder pack, and return back to the starting position, straightening the front leg. Level 1 progression here, stationary lower body. Level 2, I carry the load into the asana, maintaining leverage off of the mace. Notice the distance between my hands. I'm not holding over here by the globe and just bone stacking passively. I'm actually utilizing the leverage of the mace here and strengthening my wrists and connecting that torque and that load into my trifecta, deep inner core, lats and glutes. The main difference between Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, in a Warrior 1 position, both hip bones are facing forward. It's a closed hip posture. In Warrior 2, my hip bones face the side and I've got a greater bend, so it requires more stability, more external rotation in my hip girdle here. So notice, Warrior 2, my body is facing out. Warrior 1, my body is facing forward. The point of Warrior 1 is to be able to defend my attacker here. The point of Warrior 2 is to be able to turn around quickly, generate load, and have more power.
This is a simple idea that we repeat over and over and over again because it is repeated in almost every culture on the planet who has invented violence, and every successful culture that we remember has invented some version of violence or defense. She is coming at this from the perspective of yoga, but warrior position is no different than the martial position at its core. People will argue that warrior position in yoga, when done with ahimsa or non-violent intent, is different from, say, mountain pose in Kung Fu. As we change the upper body positions and we add different basic mace movements in, and then we transition between standing, warrior 1, and warrior 2, we will develop the athletic skill of learning to turn our hip over, and this allows us to generate more power in almost every sport. It doesn't have to be in relation to fighting or in relation to defense. It also works to help people develop power for any racket-based sport. It could be lacrosse, it could be tennis. This is a fundamental aspect of turning around, and all we are doing here is making people good at the place in the middle of the actual turning around. Later on, of course, we actually practice this in stepping patterns and turning around, but knowing how to set up and train the individual postures helps people fill in weak links in their training.